The Jeffrey Epstein story isn't just about one predator. It's about the survivors he hurt, the money that fueled him, the system that protected him, and the twisted plans he thought he could get away with. In this video, we're going deeper. The women who endured it, the ones who fought him until the end, the shadowy billions that never really made sense, the cash that still circulates today, and the grotesque eugenics project that shows just how delusional Epstein really was. And hanging over all of it, the FBI. Warnings ignored, files sealed, raids that skipped entire properties. This is the side of the Epstein saga that proves more than anything else how power protects itself. We'll start with the people who matter most, the survivors. Their stories show the human cost behind all the headlines, and no one carried that fight further than Virginia Giuffre. If you only know Virginia Giuffre from a photo in London in 2001 or a headline about Prince Andrew, you don't know enough. Virginia was a kid who survived serial abuse, a mother who built a family on the far side of the world, and a woman who forced some of the most powerful men alive to answer for what they did, or at least face the public. And in April 2025, at just 41 years old, she died at her farm in Western Australia. Her family announced it with utterly broken hearts, calling her a fierce warrior whose children were the light of her life. This is the story of a life, but also of a system, political, legal, and cultural, that failed her and so many girls like her, then kept failing them even when the truth came out. The kid they counted out. Virginia Louise Roberts was born in 1983 in California and raised in Florida. She described being molested by a family friend at 7, then bouncing between the streets, foster homes, and worse, at one point under the control of Miami trafficker Ron Eppinger. She was trying to put her life together when she reconnected with her father and took a job at Mar-a-Lago, where he worked maintenance. In 2000, Ghislaine Maxwell approached the teenager and dangled a job with Jeffrey Epstein. The first massage at Epstein's Palm Beach mansion set the pattern. Virginia later said she was groomed, trafficked, and passed around like a platter of fruit to Epstein's associates. Among the powerful names she spoke out about was Prince Andrew. That London snapshot, Virginia, 17 years old, with Andrew and Maxwell, became a symbol of how high this reached. Andrew denied wrongdoing but settled her civil suit in 2022 and pledged support for trafficking survivors without admitting liability. Fighting a machine designed to outlast you. For years, the US justice system protected Epstein more than it protected girls. In 2008, federal prosecutors under Alexander Acosta cut Epstein a secret non-prosecution deal without telling victims. Later, ruled a violation of the Federal Crime Victim Rights Act. Virginia refused to be erased. She filed suits, gave sworn statements, launched a survivor nonprofit, and kept telling the truth, even when it cost her. The marriage that became another battlefield. After fleeing Epstein's orbit, Virginia married Robert Giuffre and moved to Australia, raising 3 kids and trying to live quietly for a time. But by 2023-2024, the marriage had broken down. And in early 2025, she publicly alleged years of domestic abuse. Her family told reporters she was separated from Robert and that he had been physically violent, including a January incident during a child's birthday gathering that they said left her with a cracked sternum and a perforated eye. She was hospitalized, they said, though police did not charge him in that report. Robert, through counsel, offered no comment. In February 2025, Robert filed a family violence restraining order that, according to Virginia's family, gave him primary custody and barred Virginia from contacting their children for months. To Virginia's brother, Sky, it felt like a procedural race. He just put his in place first. He beat her to the punch. The order cut deepest where Virginia was strongest, as a mother. On February 2nd, she was accused of breaching the order by texting Robert, per local reporting. A hearing was set. In early April, Virginia issued a public statement about the alleged abuse and why she would not be silent anymore. I was able to fight back against Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, who abused and trafficked me. But I was unable to escape the domestic violence in my marriage until recently. She closed with, I have faith that justice will prevail. The crash, the Instagram, and the dispute. Late March brought another blow for Virginia. She posted on Instagram from a hospital bed, claiming she'd been in a bus crash and was in kidney failure with days to live. Her family later said the post wasn't meant to be public, while police described it as only a minor accident with no known injuries. Whether serious or not, the episode added medical fear and public scrutiny to the custody crisis that was already consuming her. On March 22nd, she wrote, "My beautiful babies have no clue how much I love them, and they're being poisoned with lies. I miss them so very much." The day she died. Virginia was found dead at her farm north of Perth on Friday, April 25th, 2025. Her family said plainly that she lost her life to suicide. They remembered a woman who was deeply loving, wise, and funny, who adored her children and many animals, and who became a beacon for survivors, even while carrying more than most people can imagine. There is still so much we do not know about her final hours. But there is a lot we do know about the months before. A marriage in pieces, allegations of serious domestic violence she said she endured for years, a restraining order that barred her from contact with the kids that she lived for, and an upcoming court fight. Her family said simply it had become too much to carry. Trump, power, and the politics that used her name. Even after her death, Virginia's name was treated like a political prop. In July, President Trump responded to a question by saying Epstein had stolen Virginia from Mar-a-Lago. Her family called it shocking, adding, "We and the public are asking for answers. Survivors deserve this." This was part of the pattern. When survivors beg for transparency, release the Epstein files, stop cutting deals for the well-connected, they get spin, deflection, or outright dismissal. Virginia understood this better than anyone. After Epstein died in custody in 2019, she stood in court and reminded the world he did not act alone. The point was never one man. It was the network, the enablers, and the people who looked away because it was easier. The book, the context, the fight over her legacy. After she died, her upcoming memoir, Nobody's Girl, became another flashpoint. Her family objected to publishing an out-of-date portrait of her marriage. The publisher later agreed to add a foreword noting the changes in her life and the allegations that became public in her final months. What the last week tells us. It's impossible to read the timeline and miss the through line. Separation from her children was the deepest wound. A restraining order cut off contact. An alleged breach by text became another legal landmine. Her own health scare publicly unraveled online. Those who loved her say the system failed again, this time in family court. And if you zoom out, it feels like an echo of the earlier betrayal. Powerful men protected, survivors told to wait their turn, and then told their turn was never coming. Virginia's final years were a battle for custody, for health, for the truth. She left behind a diary accusing the FBI of hiding Epstein's blackmail tapes, and her story sets up the next question. How did Epstein get so rich in the first place? So how does a high school dropout go from teaching math at a fancy New York prep school to owning private jets, a $77 million Manhattan mansion, and his own frickin' island? Welcome to the dark, confusing, and wildly suspicious financial origin of Jeffrey Epstein. This is the part where things start to not add up. And spoiler alert, it might involve secret hedge funds, shadow billionaires, and a suspicious amount of friendship bracelets with guys like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The Teacher Who Wasn't. Jeffrey Epstein's big break? Teaching at the elite Dalton High School in Manhattan in the 1970s. Only he wasn't qualified, like, at all. He didn't have a college degree, but he was hired anyway by Donald Barr, the school's headmaster at the time. Yes, that's the father of William Barr, who would go on to become Attorney General under Trump, but we'll park that for now. While at Dalton, Epstein reportedly charmed the children of the wealthy, because of course he did. Ew. Ugh. One of those kids' dads was Alan Ace Greenberg, the chairman of Bear Stearns, Wall Street royalty. Greenberg was impressed enough to give Epstein a job in the bank's special products division. No MBA, no background in finance, just vibes. But this was the 80s, baby. Coke-fueled confidence was currency. Chapter 2. Wall Street Whisperer or Financial Fraudster? At Bear Stearns, Epstein was known for structuring complex tax schemes for the mega wealthy. Translation, he helped rich people not pay their taxes. In 1981, he suddenly left Bear Stearns under mysterious circumstances. Some say it was related to an SEC investigation. Others say he just got too big for his britches. I wonder which one. I wouldn't know. Regardless, Epstein launched his own firm, J. Epstein & Co. He claimed he only handled clients with a minimum of $1 billion in assets. That's right, billion with a B. Not million, not startup, not I own 2 Applebee's franchises. No, you had to be billionaire tier, which sounds fake, right? Because here's the thing, no one in finance could figure out what Epstein actually did. His firm didn't file regulatory disclosures, there was no public list of clients, no big trades on record, nada. Honestly, it was like the financial version of Fight Club. But the one client we do know loads about is Leslie Wexner. Chapter 3. The Wexner Connection. Billionaire benefactor or financial beard? Leslie Wexner is the billionaire behind Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works, and basically every store in your mall during the 2000s. He met Epstein in the late 80s and within a few years handed over control of his entire fortune, like full power of attorney control. Let that sink in. Not only did Epstein become Wexner's money manager, he became his only money manager. Wexner even gave Epstein his $77 million Manhattan mansion. No, that's true, he didn't sell it, he just gave it to him. For no particular reason, I can't think of anything. This is the part of the movie where the audience yells, "Why?" Some theories, Wexner was hypnotized by Epstein's charm, or maybe blackmail was involved, or maybe, just maybe, Epstein helped him with other things we still don't know about. Wexner now says he feels duped and claimed he had no idea what Epstein was doing with his money or his private life. Sure, yeah, whatever. The guy who owns Victoria's Secret was hanging out with Epstein and Trump, creepy ass old man. Try to lie to me? Please. Chapter 4. JP Morgan, money laundering, and billionaire connections. Even after Wexner cut ties in the mid-2000s, Epstein still had powerful friends and powerful banks. He held accounts at JP Morgan Chase until 2013, 6 years after he pled guilty to procuring minors for prostitution. Why would the most powerful bank in America keep a known sex offender as a client? Well, one leaked internal email from JP Morgan described Epstein as someone who knows everyone. And that was true. From Bill Gates to Bill Clinton, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia to Naomi Campbell, Epstein collected famous friends like Labubus. Internal reports show Epstein moved hundreds of millions through his JP Morgan accounts, often in strange ways. Shell companies, offshore accounts, sudden transfers. There's a lawsuit alleging that JP Morgan ignored red flags because Epstein was just too valuable as a client. So again, what exactly was he doing with all that money? Chapter 5. The hedge fund that may never have existed. Epstein told people he ran a secretive hedge fund, but no one on Wall Street ever saw him make a trade or pitch a deal or even talk about the markets like a normal finance bro. There's like no public record of any clients besides Wexner, who's a creep. The only known staffer at his firm was a guy who reportedly didn't even know anything about finance. He was just there. So what if the hedge fund was a front? Multiple sources, including former friends, have suggested that Epstein's real business was blackmail, that he lured powerful men into compromising situations at his many, many properties, all rigged with hidden cameras, by the way, and he would then use that as leverage. One former friend said Epstein used to boast about collecting secrets. Another theory, he was laundering money for intelligence agencies. CIA, Mossad, MI6, take your pick. There's no hard proof of this, but again, his entire operation was built like a spy ring. Chapter 6. Enter Elon, Thiel, and the Silicon Valley cameos. Now let's talk about some familiar names on this channel, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. In 2011, Epstein's name was removed from the Forbes billionaire list because the magazine couldn't verify that he actually had $1 billion. Around that same time, Epstein started cozying up in the tech world. He met with Elon Musk on several occasions, one of which resulted in that photo of Elon looking like he's trying to astral project out of his own body next to Ghislaine Maxwell. A spokesperson for Elon says Epstein was just a hanger-on and that Elon didn't like him, but Epstein claimed otherwise. And he even bragged that he advised Musk on Tesla's SEC troubles. Honestly, don't know who to believe on this one, which is crazy. I know I'm always coming after Elon, but I do actually think there is enough evidence to confirm that Elon didn't like Jeffrey, especially considering how hard he's been going to get those files released. Meanwhile, Peter Thiel, billionaire, Palantir founder and vampire, was also allegedly on Epstein's radar. Epstein was obsessed with transhumanism, life extension, and the idea of eugenics for the elite, which overlaps uncomfortably with some of Thiel's well-known interests. Couple of freaks. Epstein's fortune was always kind of a black box. No hedge fund records, one real client, rumors of blackmail and intelligence ties, but the mystery didn't end with his death. In fact, the money trail only got stranger. Jeffrey Epstein is dead, but his money is still very much alive and quietly working behind the scenes. 6 years after his suicide in a Manhattan jail, the convicted sex trafficker's estate is flush with cash, tied up in secret trusts, and making millions off a Peter Thiel venture capital fund. Victims are still fighting for scraps. Powerful names are dodging questions. And somehow, the people that helped him are the ones getting paid. So where did Epstein's fortune go? Let's follow the money. The Great Epstein Fire Sale, the real estate empire nobody wanted, but everyone bought. Before his death, Epstein owned homes on nearly every corner of the elite power map: New York, Paris, New Mexico, Palm Beach, and of course, private islands in the Virgin Islands. Collectively, his real estate empire was valued at $117 million when he died in 2019. But once the estate executors got to work, the home sold for around $160 million, thanks to soaring prices and the strange real estate math of scandal. Here is a breakdown of his creepy collection and where it went. Manhattan Mansion, 9 East 71st Street. Sold for $51 million in 2021. The buyer, Michael Daffy, former Goldman Sachs executive. Original owner, Leslie Wexner, Epstein's longtime benefactor and Victoria's Secret's mogul. The mansion, mentioned 14 times in Epstein's federal indictment, was the site of repeated abuse and grooming, according to court documents. Most of the sale proceeds went directly to the Epstein Victims Compensation Fund. But here's a little twist. The house next door, 11 East 71st Street, has its own scandal-ridden backstory. Records show Epstein was directly involved in multiple shady transactions involving that property. In 1988, it was purchased by SAM Conversion Corp., an Ohio-based company linked to Epstein and Wexner. Epstein appeared on the deed, later transferring ownership to a trust he controlled. Eventually, the home was sold in 1998 to Howard Lutnick, now Trump's Secretary of Commerce. Oh, another Epstein guy just in the American government. Who could have possibly guessed? Have you guys noticed that I'm going a little bit insane in the last couple of weeks with all this Epstein stuff? Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. It's also obvious. Like, this guy was Epstein's neighbor, and now he's just, up in commerce. Like, give me a break. Sorry, I apologize. That was an outburst, and I do apologize for it. Lutnick denies any personal relationship with Epstein, but the paper trail says otherwise. Epstein was trustee. He managed the sale. He had power of attorney. And Lutnick, he bought the property using a $4 million mortgage, which he quietly paid off in 2018. Why does this matter? Because in 2025, Lutnick was caught on camera laughing next to Trump as the president discussed renewed calls to release the Epstein files. When asked about the scandal, Trump smirked.
But I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
Sure, it's anything but boring. I will say that every time. The private islands. Epstein bought Little St. James for $8 million in 1998. That is the infamous pedophile island where he allegedly trafficked, abused, and enslaved underage girls for nearly 2 decades. In 2016, he added Great St. James, right next door, for $22.5 million, supposedly to hide his activities from view. In 2023, both islands were sold for $60 million to billionaire Stephen Deckhoff, who now plans to build a 25-room luxury resort there. Yeah, really. Half of the proceeds, about $30 million, went to the US Virgin Islands government, which placed it into a victim support trust. The rest helped cover settlements, tax callbacks, and environmental fines related to Epstein's bulldozing historic slave-built structures on the islands. I mean, of course he did that. Girls trip to the luxury resort on the pedophile island, anybody? The New Mexico desert retreat with a secret airstrip, Zorro Ranch, New Mexico. Bought in 1993 for $12 million, sold in 2023 with the price undisclosed and renamed San Rafael Ranch. It was used for grooming and abuse per DOJ indictment of Ghislaine Maxwell. While it wasn't listed in the victim compensation program, the proceeds of that sale went towards estate administration, aka legal fees and debt. So no justice here, just paperwork. The Palm Beach estate. Bought for $2.5 million in 1990, sold for $18.5 million in 2021. Flip price $26 million later that year. This home, just 2 miles from Trump's Mar-a-Lago, was torn down after purchase by developer Todd Michael Glazer. The proceeds went straight to victims. The Paris apartment, sold for $10 million in 2022. Buyer, Georgy Tushev, Bulgarian businessman. French police raided this place in 2019. Jean-Luc Brunel, Epstein's modeling agency pal, was arrested and later found dead in a Paris prison cell, allegedly by suicide. I don't know why I just said that like that. It's just very interesting. Ohio, Wexner, and the summer that haunts. Epstein also owned 2 homes in New Albany, Ohio, a town that was practically built by Leslie Wexner. One house was sold for $8 million to Wexner's company. The other was gifted to Wexner's wife. Can you believe that guy has a wife? Neither made it into the estate, but they solidify Epstein's deep, weird, and financially murky ties to Wexner. So who got paid? $170 million plus was paid to over 200 victims, $105 million settlement with the US Virgin Islands, a $30 million loan repayment, millions more in legal and administrative fees. IRS to the rescue. In early 2025, the IRS handed Epstein's estate a $112 million refund. Why? The estate had prepaid $190 million in taxes back in 2020, expecting high asset values. But property sales disappointed. That Manhattan mansion was listed for $88 million and sold for $51 million. So the estate demanded the difference. The IRS said sure and handed over a 9-figure refund. Just like that, Epstein's financial ghost got a fresh infusion. Crazy that a dead pedophile is still making more money than any of us will in our entire lives, eh? Am I going crazy? By March 2025, the estate still held around $131 million in assets, including $50 million in cash. But there was a much bigger prize hidden in the fine print, the Peter Thiel windfall. In 2015 and 2016, Epstein quietly invested $40 million into 2 funds run by Valar Ventures, co-founded by tech billionaire, vampire, and Channel 100 News celebrity Peter Thiel. In 2025, that investment is now worth up to $200 million, making it the largest single asset still in Epstein's estate. But here's the twist. Since it's in a VC investment, it's locked up until the fund exists, meaning no one can touch that money yet. Not the victims, not the government, not even the estate. Eventually, it'll go to Epstein's secret trust with its handpicked beneficiaries, which we will get to. Thiel has not been accused of wrongdoing and denies any personal relationship with Epstein. And look, maybe he didn't. We don't like him for a bunch of other reasons over here. Still, his name is now tied to the estate's biggest remaining asset, and that hasn't gone unnoticed, especially as he continues to wield massive influence in politics, backing figures like Trump and J.D. Vance, and just generally being a freaking creep with too much money. The 1953 Trust. Just 2 days before his death, Epstein signed a will transferring all his assets into a secretive structure called the 1953 Trust. Named after his birth year, the trust was designed to shield assets from public scrutiny and possibly from victims. Even though the court poked holes in it really early on, the trust still stands. It's never been made fully public, but we do know a few things. Co-beneficiaries and executors. Darren and Dyke, a lawyer. Richard Kahn, an accountant. Karina Shuliak, Epstein's girlfriend, and possibly his brother Mark Epstein. Yeah, the men accused of enabling Epstein's crimes are now potentially inheriting millions of dollars. A civil lawsuit is still pending against them, accusing them of aiding and abetting his abuse. Yet, unless that case succeeds, they'll likely walk away very rich. 6 years after Epstein died, his estate's still worth hundreds of millions, with cash tied up in secret trusts and venture funds. Victims fight for scraps, while his allies stay rich, which raises another question. How does someone get away with crimes like this in plain sight? So, you want to commit a bunch of horrific crimes, but prison looks so stressful. Don't worry, with some friends in high places, a healthy cash flow, and an island of your very own, you can get away with all of it. Our easy 7-step plan will teach you how to do it all and cover it up. This is How to Get Away with It, Epstein's 7-step guide. Step 1. Be hella rich. The first thing that's really going to help you get away with your atrocities is to have enough money to cover your ass. The more, the better. One way to do this is to start your own consulting firm. If you're good with finances, you could work with billionaires, top government officials, and celebrities. Manage their assets while taking a sweet 10% cut. This won't work if you only work with normal people. You need real money, international money, private jet money. So make sure your client list is billionaire only. No time wasters, thanks. Since you're already kind of a criminal, you should have no problem scheming your way through this. There are so many ways to pad out your earnings, like running a Ponzi scheme, or just embezzling money for people more important than you, keeping secrets for them, moving their cash around for them. But spend your money wisely, like on political campaigns. This will help you in the next step. Step 2. Make some friends. Climb the social ladder. Nobody can make it alone. We all need friends, especially friends in high places. Now that you're working with billionaires, government people, and other fancy folk, make sure they like you. You're going to need to win them over if you want to get away with it. Woo them with trips, lavish gifts, throw the best parties around, and flatter their deepest, darkest desires. You want them all saying nice things about you. For example, Donald Trump. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. You never know. That guy might just become the president, which could be really helpful since you want to get away with it. You also want to make sure you're making friends from all over the world, from Saudi Arabia to Israel and beyond. This will come in very handy later. You also need somebody you can really trust, a confidant, a co-conspirator, a lover, somebody who could even take the fall for you if need be, but don't tell her that. Now, I know it's hard to find the perfect lover, but since you've been making powerful friends all over the show, why not just shack up with one of their daughters? She's in close proximity to power, has a weird relationship with her dad, she's got her own money, and she's obsessed with you. She's the perfect fit. Caution. Although it is important to make friends, don't ever trust them. Make sure you've got something on them. This is all about getting away with it after all.
Bill Clinton.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein.
Step 3. Buy an island. Committing especially heinous crimes is a lot easier in private, so it's important if you want to keep this whole thing going that you have as many properties as you can, and of course, get an island. We recommend starting with a mansion in New York. You can base yourself there. Remember when you made all those cool friends in step 2? Well, this is where you can start pulling some strings. Get your mansion from a client like Les Wexner, the guy behind Victoria's Secret, who will transfer the deed to you for $0. No real reason, he just really likes you. You're also going to want to acquire a giant ranch in New Mexico, a mega mansion in Florida, a getaway apartment in Paris, and of course, your own island in the Caribbean. The island is fundamental. You aren't going to be able to scale up your crimes while people can see you. You need a private space with only people you're paying and no pesky law enforcement. The island is fab because you can invite all your rich friends out there and do whatever you want. And oh, make sure you have a private jet. It's the best way to conceal what you're doing. There's no better way to sneak in the girls you and your friends like, and it makes bringing in whatever else your guests ask for really easy. You want to be a good host after all, and if you control the only way on or off the island, well, that's great for crimes. Step 4, deck out your space. It's okay to be paranoid at this point. You've been committing disgusting, unspeakable crimes for a while, and you can't have anyone mess that up. You love power. It's awesome. You want to keep it. Luckily, there is one easy way to attack both those issues at once. Hidden cameras. Your friends are cool, but you know not to trust them. So you just want to make sure that you have as many hidden cameras as possible in every room in all your properties. Toilets, bedrooms, everywhere. And of course, you want to show your friends all the crazy stuff they got up to at that party last night. This way, if they decide it's time to call you out or if you get caught, well, you'll at least have some interesting leverage. Make sure you're keeping everything on labeled discs and ideally have over 10,000 different images and videos. More is more. This is also the best way to continue to get rich and consolidate your power. Some call it blackmail. Some would keep a list. Others would just call it being pragmatic. Step 5. Call in those favors. Oh no, you've been caught. Don't worry. If you follow the stages perfectly up until now, this won't turn out to be a huge issue. Unfortunately, if you get investigated by the FBI, it's not going to be a great week. And it's bad. They got you on some crazy shit. The most important thing here is not to panic. You made all of those friends for a reason, remember? Get on the phone and let them know you need help. Even if the FBI has a 53-page indictment ready to go, your friends can sort you out with some fab lawyers who will make sure you don't go to trial and you get a sweet, sweet plea deal. The deal means you won't face any federal charges. You'll only serve less than 18 months, and the FBI will fully leave you alone and stop digging into which of your powerful friends love hanging out at your mansion. Aren't you lucky you had friends in high places? Like the then US Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and now United States Secretary of Labor, Alexander Acasta. He'll give you that crazy-ass plea deal because your friends let him know that you belonged to intelligence and were above his pay grade, and to leave it alone. Phew. Your time in prison should honestly be pretty chill. Your bros are here to help you. Unlike most sex offenders, you'll just be put into a cushy private wing of a local jail, and after just a couple of months, you can pop out on work release for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Step 6. Vibe for a while. Jail was nothing. That was so easy. So at this point, just carry on with your bullshit, I guess. The worst that could happen already did, and it was fine. Yay! Step 7. Peace out. Unfortunately, you flew too close to the sun. You committed a few too many horrific, disgusting acts upon others, and they got you. Those pesky victims told on you. Ugh. At this stage, repeat step 5. And if that doesn't work this time for some unknown random reason and you end up in jail, just commit suicide, I guess. Luckily, if you follow all the steps, your missus will end up taking the fall for you and all of your friends will get away with it. And isn't that the main thing? The real journey wasn't the crimes we committed. The real journey was the friends we made along the way. And yet, none of this would have been possible without the FBI. From ignored survivor reports in the 90s, to the sweetheart deal in the 2000s, to surveillance footage that malfunctioned right when it mattered. The FBI and the Justice Department had warnings, files, and evidence across 3 decades. Instead of accountability, we got a sweetheart deal, sealed documents, raids that skipped key locations, and politicians who turned transparency into a prop. By 2025, Donald Trump's DOJ wasn't exposing anything. It was stage managing the FBI. Today, we're telling this as a straight, chronological story, who first sounded the alarm, what the FBI did, what it didn't, and how those choices add up to something that, to a lot of people, looks an awful lot like a cover-up. The first complaint and the ignored warnings, 1996 to 2005. Our story really begins in March of 2005. A 14-year-old told her parents she'd been abused at Epstein's Palm Beach mansion. Her mother went to police. Detectives opened a case and the pattern surfaced fast. Girls recruited under the promise of massage work, cash payments, pressure to bring in other teens, and a running list of names. By the time investigators were done, it looked like less a rumor and more like a conveyor belt. This wasn't just a case of he said, she said. After detectives ran controlled calls and corroborated accounts, they did a classic trash pull outside of the mansion and recovered appointment notes and phone numbers that matched what the girls had described. Plus, pink to-from message pads with first names. That's the kind of corroboration juries understand, not rumor, paper. But 2005 wasn't the first warning. Nearly a decade earlier, in 1996, survivor Maria Farmer says she reported Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to the FBI and urged agents to look at other powerful men in their circle. Nothing came of it. And in the early 2000s, the money itself was waving a red flag. JP Morgan filed dozens of suspicious activity and cash transaction reports tied to Epstein before 2006. The bank later said law enforcement never contacted them about those alerts until years later. So by the mid-2000s, you had survivor testimony, banking smoke, and now a live local investigation. In 2006, the FBI opened its own case and started interviewing victims and witnesses. 50-plus interviews between 2006 and 2008. The Bureau wasn't in the dark. It was building a file, which makes what happened next even harder to swallow. 2006 to 2008, the sweetheart deal. This is where the story takes a pretty sharp left away from justice. Palm Beach detectives wanted felony charges. The county state attorney slow-rolled it. A grand jury returned only a solicitation count. Palm Beach PD Chief Michael Rater took the rare step of asking the feds for help. Translation: the locals knew the local path was being sandbagged. That's when the case shifted federal into the hands of US Attorney Alexander Acosta. On paper, this should have been the moment for a clean federal sex trafficking indictment. Instead, negotiations went subterranean. Epstein's defense table was a who's who: Alan Dershowitz, Ken Starr, Jay Lefkowitz, and more. They pushed Acosta's office relentlessly, and the talks drifted up the chain, all the way to Acosta himself and, according to multiple accounts, to Maine Justice in Washington. Meanwhile, line prosecutors in Miami drafted memos supporting federal charges. Those memos lost to the backroom compromise. What came out the other side of this was a non-prosecution agreement, the NPA. In plain English, Epstein would plead guilty to minor state charges only. He'd serve 13 months in county jail with work release 6 days a week. The federal case would vanish. And the craziest part? Immunity would extend to any potential co-conspirators. Victims were not told the deal was being finalized until it was too late to object. That's not leniency, that's architecture. It didn't just spare Epstein, it wrapped a legal blanket around any other names. Prosecutors even drafted a federal indictment, then shelved it. The courtroom lights never came on. Years later, Alexander Acosta would allegedly tell people he'd been told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. That single line has haunted the entire investigation since. Is it a convenient myth, a half-truth, or the blunt explanation of why a federal sex trafficking case evaporated? I mean, pick your poison, but the result is the same. The Department of Justice's own watchdog eventually reviewed Acosta's handling and concluded that he showed poor judgment and that victims were not treated with the forthrightness and sensitivity that the department expects. So, translation, the government sold them out. Oh, and Alexander Acosta, by the way, he didn't get sidelined. In 2017, Donald Trump nominated him as Secretary of Labor, the cabinet official charged with protecting workers from exploitation, including trafficking. The man who signed off on Epstein's shield got a promotion. Oh, and about that work release, it was so generous. It felt like a piss take. Epstein left the county facility most days, spent long stretches in office suites, and had unusually lax supervision for a registered sex offender. Imagine any other defendant in a trafficking probe getting that treatment, right? Like, oh yes, you're guilty of those things. Please very kindly exit the prison and go to your mansion and hang out with Ghislaine and do it more. 2009 to 2015, the rights fight and who actually got punished. After the deal, survivors and their lawyers turned to the Crime Victims' Rights Act. They argued prosecutors had misled them, with letters implying a live federal case, while the NPA was actually already locked in. The litigation crept forward for years. In 2019, Judge Kenneth Mara ruled that the government violated victims' rights by secretly resolving this case. Moral clarity without matching consequences. Meanwhile, who went to prison? Not the decision makers. Epstein's longtime house manager, Alfredo Rodriguez, was prosecuted for obstruction after he tried to sell Epstein's black book to investigators. He served 18 months, and from what I can see, he didn't get a lot of daily work release. The book, names, numbers, coded notes, oozed into civil suits and reporting. Rodriguez did time. Acosta did a swearing-in ceremony. 2019, arrest, raids, and what the agents took, room by room. In July 2019, the Southern District of New York indicted Epstein. The FBI moved fast, and for once, in full view. The Manhattan townhouse raid looked like a guided tour of a leverage machine. Also, it was just crazy in there. You should watch my video on it. Anyway, here's what they found. The basement safe, bundles of cash, loose diamonds, and multiple passports, including one listing a foreign address. Not exactly the I'll be there to face trial sort of energy. Office and library, filing cabinets, ledgers, correspondence, written phone lists, paper trails of who, when, and how often. In the bedrooms, massage tables and framed photographs of very young-looking women, plus stacks of CDs. Storage room, rows of discs labeled with cryptic notes. Think young-looking catering. Electronics everywhere. Desktop towers, laptops, external hard drives. In other words, Epstein didn't just live large, he archived. The house itself read like a catalogue of relationships and routines. The search warrant return reportedly ran for pages, an inventory that read like a floor plan. Safe, desk, nightstand, closet, server rack. For digital forensics, that matters. Each location suggests a different stream of data and a different potential timeline. Then agents went on to Little St. James. FBI and NYPD personnel ferried boxes out of villas and outbuildings, and drones were there catching it all. Whatever the public would be allowed to see later, the message in that moment was simple. We are finally going through everything. And yet, one place stayed quiet, Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. Survivors had tied abuse to the property. Neighbors remembered odd traffic patterns. Visitors were documented. But there was never a comparable, fully disclosed federal search there. Manhattan and the island turned into headline theater, but the 7,500-acre ranch remained conspicuously off-stage. The evidence that went missing, or almost did. If this were fiction, this is the part you'd call, a little too on the nose. Palm Beach, 2006. Before police could execute a full search of Epstein's Florida home, key computer equipment was allegedly removed. Detectives later said they believed word of the warrant had reached Epstein's team in time to spirit items away. I mean, it could be a coincidence. The effect was the same. Potential digital evidence was gone. MCC surveillance video, 2019. After Epstein's first reported suicide attempt in July, jail officers initially said the camera footage from the tear had been lost due to a technical error and a preservation mix-up. Weeks later, prosecutors told a judge the backup copy had been found. Then, on the night of Epstein's death in August, at least 2 cameras outside the cell reportedly malfunctioned, producing footage that was unusable or corrupted, and there was the missing stuff, and now it's out, you can see we're seized media gaps. Even after the 2019 raids, lawyers and reporters encountered chain of custody questions. Labeled CDs referenced in affidavits that didn't match later inventories. Drives logged without publicly released hashes. Photographs circulating in civil discovery that didn't appear in Freedom of Information Act related sets. None of this proves grand conspiracy, but stacked next to each other, I don't know, I guess it's just like a really bad look. The FBI's vault, what they kept, and why that matters. After the 2019 seizures, the Bureau sat atop a mountain of paper and media. When survivors and journalists sought disclosure, the FBI produced a Vaughan Index, which is a formal list of what they were withholding. The categories alone tell a story. Confidential source files, handwritten agent notes, grand jury subpoenas, correspondence with foreign governments, bank records, photographs, even communication with the people who negotiated the 2008 deal. One particular detail landed with a thud. The Bureau couldn't provide a standard case closing memorandum. Technically, that meant the matter was still open. In practice, it meant the Bureau could cite ongoing investigation to avoid releasing more. If you're generous, that's cautious case management. If you're not, it looks like a vault. Looks like they just got a vault of stuff. Add the Freedom of Information Act into the mix. Lawyers received estimated completion dates stretching into late 2027. For survivors who have waited most of their adult lives, we appreciate your patience. Reads like check back in when it's politically safer. And the Vaughan Index wasn't just, we can't show you this. It was a map of everything the FBI thinks the public shouldn't see. Informant handling notes, correspondence with foreign partners, subpoenas, internal emails with the US Attorney's Office about the MPA, and entire folders of photos. I mean, look, if you're trying to restore trust, you don't start by blocking out the index. 2024 to 2025, survivors sue the government, the door swings shut. In 2024, a group of survivors sued the United States, accusing the FBI and DOJ of repeated failures, ignoring early tips, protecting Epstein with the 2008 deal, and sidelining victims ever since. They asked for records and accountability. In 2025, Trump's DOJ and the FBI issued a tidy little memo with a blunt message. There is no incriminating client list, no credible blackmail evidence, no predicate to investigate uncharged third parties, and no further disclosures are warranted. If you wanted closure, that was the end of it. If you wanted answers, it read like deja vu. Victims' lawyers said they'd received no meaningful outreach. Freedom of Information Act responses slid even further into the distance. 2026, then 2027. After everything, decades of warnings, a federally blessed up plea bargain, a second round of charges, raids, a death in custody. The government's answer to the survivors was essentially, trust us. So when you put all of it together, the survivors, the money, the crimes, the science experiments, and the FBI, you see the real story. Epstein wasn't a lone predator. He was a project, a network, and even in death, the systems that enabled him are still at work today. This video was a compilation of a bunch of my Epstein research. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the case, make sure you subscribe because we do videos like this 5 days a week, like the real news, but like better in a lot of different ways. Subscribe though. I'm going to stop singing now.